Hello guys, and welcome back to another video. Now in today's video, we're going to be doing a tier list, which is something I don't believe I've done on this channel before. So, what we're going to do is, I have some tiers here, I think 7. So we have S, A, B, C, D, E, and F tier. And we're going to put the killers in order based on how good I think they are. So there's a couple of assumptions I should explain first. So the first thing is that the way I tier killers is killers in tier S are killers who can win any game whatsoever. A tier killers are killers who can win pretty much every game you're realistically going to go against. The only ones they're not going to win are tournament squads, essentially. They are the ones in control of the game. B tier, again, you're just going down a level. You're going to beat all but pretty decent survivors. C is for killers who are going to win about half their games at high ranks, or based on their skill. So half their games will be wins of 4 kills. They'll get a couple of 2 kills as well, and then they'll occasionally have games where they just get none. D killers are ones where the game's less and less in the killer's control, and it's more in the survivor control. E, again, even more, it's more in the survivor control. And F, I think, honestly, is completely up to the survivors. The killer can play well, and the survivors can still destroy them. Other assumptions I'm making, I'm assuming they're using add-ons, but they won't be add-ons of above green rarity, and I'm also excluding add-ons which are what I would call overused or big changes. So that's stuff like Top Knot on Oni, Bleach on Clown, and hence his tier, that you'll see it soon, and Compound 21 on Blight. There's also a couple of other add-ons like that, and I'm going to explain if any of them come up. And finally, I'm assuming that we're not having a superhuman playing these killers. I'm assuming it's your pretty decent player at killer, but nobody who's absolutely insane. So let's get into the tiers. So S tier, top 2 killers are in here, and I think we all know who they are. It's Nurse and Spirit, and Nurse is my number 1, Spirit my number 2. The reason being is that they are pretty even, if I'm honest, in many ways, and anybody who puts them the other way around, I understand. I'm not gonna try and argue the other way. It's just a personal preference, but the reason I do it this way is that Spirit has her cooldown bar. So if she uses her power, she has that big bar that has to recharge before she can use it again. Nurse is similar in that she has her blink charge count and they have to recharge. But Nurse can use 1 blink pretty much immediately out of the fatigue, and B, it's so much less time. So much less. Also, Nurse has slightly better mobility than Spirit in the same sense that she can just use a blink and recharge it in a second, whereas Spirit can use her power for 5 seconds and have to wait again to get it back. So that's the reason I put them in that order. I think Nurse is slightly better than Spirit, but not hugely. So these 2 are the killers who can compete at tournament level. Now, let's get on to A tier. And my number 3 killer is Hag. And a lot of people get shocked when I say that, but Hag is an insanely strong killer on good players. If you know how to play Hag right, you can win so much. The only problem being with Hag is there is some solid counterplay. Flashlights, running through traps while she's carrying. That's why you'll see some Hags running agitation to try and get to a hook as quick as possible, so that isn't a problem. But and also her 110 move speed. So Hag, she can be as good as S tier, but if you go against really good survivors, they know what they need to be doing and they can counter her well. But again, she is insanely strong, insane mobility, insane chase times. I mean, they're not even chases really. They break the rules of chases in many ways, and that's kind of why she's so good. She doesn't have to loop. She doesn't have to break pallets, really. I mean, she will at times, but she's also insane territorially. And a perk like Corrupt Intervention on her makes her insanely strong. She is definitely the third best killer in the game. You can argue that she should be S tier, but I think there's just a little bit too much counterplay to her for it to be as good as Nurse and Spirit. My next killer is Huntress. Reason being, if you're a good Huntress, you can just do so many things with her. She is limited. Maps can destroy her at times, which sucks, to be honest. But her snowball is insane. Her ability to get people down quickly, insane. Good Huntress is insane. She sits just in that zone where she's pushing on S tier. I don't think she's gonna ever really get there. You couldn't buff her to that point, but she pushes it, and she's probably, if Hag wasn't your top of A tier, Huntress would be it. She's just really quite strong. Oni is my 5th killer, and reason being is he is an absolute slugging monster and snowball monster. He can get so much pressure from 1 power. It's insane. Now again, you have to assume that the Oni is going to run Infectious Fright. I'm going to say it like this: if you're not running Infectious Fright on Oni, there's a problem. You should run Infectious Fright on Oni. It doesn't make sense not to. But Oni just can do so many things. He also has a great set of add-ons all round. Again, we're excluding Top Knot here, but that's insanely strong. And then all his other add-ons are also really, really quite good. Like, I don't know if there are many other killers in this game who have such a good set of add-ons as Oni. And it just makes him an absolute monster. He is insane. Again, there is quite a bit of counterplay with him. You can dead angle him, which is, it can really, really destroy an Oni, because if they're lunging through that stuff, then they're wasting so much time. But yeah, he's really quite a strong killer. And that's why I have him as the 5th best in the game. Up in number 6, we have Freddy. And the big things that go for Freddy is pulls, which have no bad side to him, for him. And so he doesn't get slowed down, and he can reuse them as much as he wants. And they slow you down insanely. It's like 15% or something. And he also has a gen teleport, which makes him insanely mobile, and makes perks like Pop Goes the Weasel insanely strong on him. He's also going to be in chases pretty much the whole game. It's sort of a perfect cacophony of a killer. His add-ons also make him even stronger. So yeah, he's all round pretty good killer. There's not too much counterplay to him. The only real problem he has is it can take so long to get down. If somebody just holds W, they'll run around a loop and just hold W until you get the hit, and then they'll go to the next loop, hold W, maybe get the pallet drop, hold W longer and everything. He just takes a little bit too long to get down, and there's too much a survivor can do to stop him getting a quick down, even though it can have bad consequences long term. It's still a little bit too slow for him to be considered S or top of A, and that's why I have him at the bottom of A tier. So that means we have to go on to tier B, and the first killer I have in tier B is Blight. Now, the reason I have Blight at the top is he is, again, another monster of a killer. I mean, he has everything going for him. He has mobility, like pretty much no other killer actually. It's a really interesting way of mobility. Again, he can't get quite as far as quick as someone like Hillbilly or Oni, but the mobility is different. And you can actually chain your mobility into a hit that is at times uncounterable. He also has chase power that's actually okay in chase. Some loops doesn't work on, I get that, it doesn't work in every loop, but on the loops it works on, you can get pretty guaranteed hits. He's also an incredibly fun killer, and I love that. He's actually probably one of the best killers Behavior's ever made. He's awesome. And yeah, he's pretty strong. You should be able to win against the majority of teams with him. The counterplay he has is also kind of similar to Oni, where if you see him bounce towards you, if you go around a tight corner, he can't get to you. But again, he has a massive hitbox that he can hit you in. It's literally nearly 180 degrees. It's huge. But yeah, I think he's the top of B tier. A really quite strong killer. But he can be beaten mainly on chase times, really. And the next killer I have is Hillbilly. Now, a lot of people rate Hillbilly a lot higher than I do. I honestly don't think he's overly good killer. He's a pretty good killer. The thing he has going for him is his sheer mobility and his ability to insta-down if people make bad decisions. So what he can do is he can punish a risky play with his insta-down, and he can be in chase all the time. He can also pressure all the gens at all times. Again, the overheat mechanic does absolutely nothing to him, just ignore it. All it does is make feathering not the best idea. It's really no big deal. Again, I don't think his chainsaw downs in an actual chase where the survivor's in a good position ever really on the killer. You can make good curves and stuff, but it's down to the survivor to make a poor decision or read or whatever. Again, getting down to a Hillbilly with his chainsaw in a proper chase, it's mainly down to a mistake on the survivor side, and that's why he's not pushing A tier, because his mobility is A tier. He has huge mobility. But yeah, that's why I have Hillbilly in the place I do. Next up is Pyramid Head. Now, I was expecting to put Pyramid Head down in C tier, and in fact I did before I played him on 4.3.0. And they literally did nothing to him in his nerf, pretty much. He only has a bigger slowdown. It has nudged him down a tad. It puts him on par with Doctor, the next killer I'll talk about, because when he goes, well, essentially, a big way he gets his hits is at pallets when people drop them. Now, what you should do as a survivor is if you see him put his sword into the ground, you just keep running. And he will, if he keeps doing that, he will get a hit at some point, but he goes slightly slower than you for a short period of time. About a second, I believe it is. So while he's going slower than you, you make a tad distance and then he catches up, and you just have a continuous loop of that happening. And it's just, the problem is it takes so much time on his half to have that happen. So that's his weakness. His strength is he can do that against less experienced survivors. He can destroy people at windows. Vaulting a window against this guy is really quite bad idea. Depends on how much distance you have. He also has a hugely strong secondary power in the fact that you put people into cages, mitigate meta perks. Most meta perks are mitigated by him. You know, your DS, your BT, even stuff like Will Make It, I believe, doesn't work. I may be wrong there though, so don't take that as gospel. And yeah, so he can tunnel if he needs to. He also doesn't need to spend time hooking, which can be a big deal. But yeah, that's why I kind of rate him low, mid, B tier. He's a pretty, in fact no, he is a strong killer. He's above average, but he's not quite pushing the top killers, in my opinion. The next killer I have, and the killer at the bottom of B tier, as I said earlier, is Doctor. Now, he is very similar to Pyramid Head, actually. His whole power comes around denying people pallets and windows, pretty much, and a huge ability to find someone. His Static Blast makes him... I love his Static Blast. It's actually quite fun because it means he's pretty much going to always be in chase. He also has Madness, which, again, wastes 12 seconds every sort of minute or two on a survivor when they go to tier 3. It can be quite a detriment having to do that so often. However, Doctor's biggest weakness is, again, the people who just loop until he catches up to them naturally. after denying pallet after pallet. He slows down when he shocks to, I believe, 93% the speed of a survivor. And so that allows him to get a little bit of distance on him while he's shocking. And so if he's denying the pallet, you just keep running around, and you do that as long as you possibly can until he finally catches up, gets a hit, and then repeat the process pretty much on a different pallet. That's his problem. He can't get those downs quite quick enough. But he is a really quite strong killer. Again, if you don't go against that, you're going to be having a wonderful time. Great gen control because he can put people into tier 3. You can literally, if you run pop on him, I don't personally, but if you run pop on him, you can tier 3 some people on a gen who are trying to pop it at the very last second and then pop the gen in their face. It really can do some damage. But yeah, Doc, he's above average. He's quite a good killer. But he isn't going to ever push those upper levels because he is limited. He has time, he takes slightly too long in chase, really, but he has great map control. He always knows where people are. He's a very strong killer. So let's get into the C tier, and at the top of the C tier I have Ghostface, and honestly Ghostface is pretty self-explanatory. He's a strong killer because he can insta-down, he can get rid of his red light, he can be stealthy, and still move 115, which other killers can't. However, you can knock him out of his power, and he has to wait for his power to come back. Now, some people might be expecting me to exclude Chewed Pen as an add-on on him, and I really had to and ah about this, and the reason I'm not is because he has a series of add-ons which give him that increased recovery. If he only had Chewed Pen, I would get rid of it. But because he also has the notes, is it Thompson notes? I'm allowing it because he can use that instead, and he's not going to run out of those green add-ons. A problem he has is a lot of his add-ons are useless outside of the Chewed Pen and the notes. The recovery add-ons essentially, but he is a pretty strong killer. Again, limitations are chase times. He's an M1 killer, so that's another limitation to him. Any M1 killer is going to struggle a little bit, but yeah, he is a pretty decent killer. Top of average. He's not quite pushing those top levels, but he's not a bad killer. He's a pretty good killer still. The next killer I have on the list is Cannibal. Now, the reason I have Cannibal here is he has an insta-down, which makes him good. It's a pretty decent insta-down, so if anybody's out of position, you can insta-down them. The problem being is if they're in position, you're going to have a problem, because his power isn't very good at loops, in my opinion at least. The strongest perk on him is something like Bamboozle, running Bamboozle, blocking a window, and then using your chainsaw to get rid of the pallet. But again, it just takes too long to get the downs. If you could get those downs really quick, it'd be insane, but you can't. Again, has a semi-decent set of add-ons. They're pretty good. His power's pretty good when it works. But again, massive tantrum if you mess up. And chases are just a bit too long for him to be considered a really top killer. But yeah, he's pretty, again, another average killer. Pretty good, but not quite pushing those upper limits. Next, we have Deathslinger. Now, Deathslinger has pretty much all the same problems that all the mid-tier killers have. He has pretty good chase, but the chases take too long. He also has zero map pressure because he's a 1-turn killer. He actually has nothing going for him in terms of map pressure. His chase is what goes for him. And the problem is the chase can be quick, but they take, in my opinion, slightly too long for him to be considered B or A. He's definitely a mid-C killer. I would never suggest that you buff this guy because I find him absolutely no fun whatsoever. I'm just going to be honest. I hate this killer so much. But yeah, he's the average mid-tier killer. He does what he does. He's semi-quick in chase. It's a lot of it's in your control as the Deathslinger, actually. It's all down to how good you shoot. But his chase is just, in my opinion, a little too long. Again, you could exclude Warden Keys. I and ahed over it, but again, he has other add-ons that do the exact same thing, so I chose not to. They do change him quite a bit, however, so take it with a pinch of salt. Warden's Keys are pretty strong with him. If you didn't have Warden's Keys, he might drop a little bit, but not massively. And so, yeah, he's a mid-tier killer. Next up, I have Plague. Now, a lot of people might be shocked by that, but there's 2 reasons, essentially, that she's strong. A, keeps everyone injured all game. That is so strong, by the way. Having everyone injured means that going for saves is scary. You can camp out a save pretty well. It also means your chase time should be down quite well. Problem being, however, early game, really bad. She has to get the people injured. However, what else she has going for is her power, and her power is insane. So if people choose to cleanse against you, you get that power. You also now get that power by default, which is just insane on her. So you can sometimes, depending on what add-ons you bring, so if you bring Corrupt Apple and the Apple add-ons, you can finish the game before it's even started. Her power is really, really strong. Really strong. She can do so much work with her power. But, again, good survivors spread out. If you spread out against her, she's going to struggle a lot. And also, unless she's using her power, she has no chase power. The only chase power she kind of has is having everyone injured, which is a good one, but you can still loop her for an extended period of time. But yeah, she's, again, just average. It can go either way with her. You can either have a fantastic game with her, or a terrible game with her. It's just the reality of her. And the final killer in C tier is Demo. I love Demo. Demo's one of my favourite killers in the game, but he's not quite good enough to really do much. Portals, in my opinion, they take too long to place. I think Rat's Tail should be default on him. But yeah, take too long to place. Too much of a warning when you're going through your portals. His power's pretty good. The shred is pretty good. However, it's got a huge negative if you mess it up. But yeah, he's just an average killer with a pretty average power. Again, he has absolutely diabolical add-ons. His add-ons are awful. So, another bad thing going for him there. So, he's okay. He's pretty good. He can deny windows. He can break pallets really quick. He can do all that. But he's not quite good enough to be considered in any good capacity in this game. So, now we go down to D tier, and at the top of D tier, I have Wraith. Some people think Wraith's really strong. The problem I have with him is his base move speed in his cloak is just too slow. You are forced to run a Windstorm add-on, pretty much. I am allowing Windstorm add-ons in this case, again, because it's a series of add-ons. There are lots of Windstorm add-ons, so I'm going to let people, let his rank be using a yellow or green Windstorm, which are pretty strong on him, as well as Bone Clapper. Bone Clapper's pretty strong on him, but again, he's got an add-on reliance, which I'm not against, but he needs less reliance for Windstorm specifically to ever be considered good. You also get a big warning when he's coming out of Cloak. You can see him across the map when he's in Cloak. So his stealth isn't overly good. It can be pretty good at times, but it's not overly good in my opinion. So that's why he's D tier. He is definitely one who's pushing C tier, however. Certain playstyles, the hit and run playstyle, can be really strong on this guy. It really can work. And so that's why I wouldn't consider him a terrible killer. But face value, if you weren't running a build, you're going to have a terrible time. Terrible. So, yeah. That's where Wraith's at. He could do with a couple of buffs, but he shouldn't be buffed too much, in my opinion. That's what I think he is. Next killer is Legion. Now, the reason Legion isn't E or F is simply because he keeps everybody injured all game. That, again, it's strong. We talked about on Plague. It's so strong. It allows you to do campy stuff if you need to. Again, I'm not assuming that you're just going to face camp everyone, but if you are in the need to sort of force someone to save, and in fact the survivors make a mistake in that they need to force a save, you're going to get a 1-for-1 guaranteed, or even deny the save. It's quite strong. He can also find people really well with his power. He gets that easy first hit if people heal up. Again, if they heal up, they waste a huge amount of time. He's pretty okay. He has nothing in chase going for him except the injured factor, which is why he's down here. He has absolutely nothing chase-wise going for him except the injured factor. So that's why he's not C tier. Next up is Myers. Myers is just an awkward one. There's no specific reason why he's not good. He has everything on paper. He has everything going for him, but the problem is he just takes too long to get going. Too long. You can be good on Myers. Certain add-ons, so the J. Mars Memorial add-on, which gives you increased stalk speed, quite a strong add-on. Again, not excluded because it's a series add-on. Instant tier 3 Myers is a very strong build. But yeah, he just takes a little too long to get going. That's really it. His insta-down's great, but once you're going, he's great. But he just takes too long to get going. He just needs to be going from the start. Something that could make him better is if he had a shorter tier 3, but a way shorter stalk time. That could be an interesting change to him to maybe buff him in some way. That might push him up to C tier. But yeah, he's not quite pushing there yet. Next up, I have Pig at the bottom of D tier. She's just had nerf after nerf after nerf. She, on paper, again, should be a good killer. 1 in 4 chance of getting your trap off. Again, should mean that you're getting some pretty decent slowdown, mid-game slowdown. However, the fact that they can just get their trap off first try sucks. Also, the fact that they can search boxes without their trap being activated sucks. An idea I've had suggested is that when somebody searches a box, their trap starts, and that would, again, big buff for her. It would push her up a bit. She has just been shadow nerfed time after time after time. You know, endgame collapse nerfed her. And her trap's not working. She just the terror radius change nerfed her actually when they standardized terror radiuses. Because she has to use whispers and Monitor and Abuse to be able to sneak up on someone. Her move speed when crouched is awful. It's 90% the speed of a survivor. It's so slow. Her ambush is pretty okay. It's actually okay, but it's quite easy to counter. Really, you just run away from a loop. You couldn't buff it, but it's not going to give her enough to make her a good killer, and that's why she is actually the 3rd worst killer in the game. And now we go down to E tier. And in E tier, the Lonely Trapper. He's just not too good. He relies on add-ons a lot. You're allowed to use the yellow trap bag in my list, but he has to go collect traps, which sucks. He needs something to make him good again. Whether giving him better trap placements, giving him more trap space. He just doesn't have enough on him right now to make him any good, and it's kind of sad because in theory he should be in pretty he's never going to be a B, A or S tier killer, and that's not what people are asking for. They're just asking for him to be a little bit good. A C or a D, even a D tier killer would actually make him quite fun to play, but right now, a huge setup time. He has to go collect the traps. It sucks. It really does. And it's really quite sad. And the final and worst killer in the game is Clown. And there's no particular reason why. Again, Clown is not allowed to use Bleach Bottle because I think that add-on, personally, is too game-changing, and it's too game-changing an add-on. I don't really think there's much they could actually do to Clown to buff him. It's too much in the survivor control. Just pre-drop the pallets. That's all you need to do. He has no gen control. You know, if he outpositions you, what does he get? He gets a hit. And then you run to the opposite side of the map, and then he has to restart all over again. He just is not a strong killer. So that's why I have him in F tier. But anyway, I hope you guys all enjoyed this video. I hope it made sense. And I will catch you guys in the next one.